Hey, what's up, guys? So, just a couple days ago, I talked with you a little bit about the 1912 City Series in Chicago, the Cubs-White Sox series. I don't have any rooting interest here at all, right? I have no real connection to Chicago, but what we noticed when we looked at those old newspapers is that there was a series that Retrosheet didn't have listed. So let's go take a look and see what we can find here. We have the screen set up. You can see there the big wagon wheel axle here from Gettysburg, which isn't too far away from where we live, as part of the background. How beautiful. We'll go ahead and put this back up, and let's see what we have here. We're on Retrosheet site, and we go over to special features, right? Click on the first link for regional postseason series, and there's a list of the series played, and it is incomplete. Of course, they played in 1906, the Cubs and White Sox did. I suspect that there are more series out there than this, and that the research behind this has not been complete. And so I will show you the reason why I suspect that. I bet you can find a lot more than just these if you really looked. 1903, here you go. Sox and Colts may meet today. They called the old orphans of the National League the Colts in 1903. And there's the local championship series that was being set up. Now, you can see here, look at this. Athletics beat Phillies. The Philadelphia National and American League teams also had their own series. That is also not listed here. So there's a lot of work that we have to do. Maybe there aren't play-by-play accounts available, but we'll see what we can find. We'll just take a real quick look here and see if we can figure out kind of what was going on back then. So I'll show you the way that I kind of go through these, right? We look over at, usually it's not going to be pages 1 or 2. Look over starting at page 3, no, 4, no, 5, no. 6 is your editorial section, and 7 is not going to be sports either. But here you go. We have it right here. Colts smother the White Sox, and Boston loses the first. So we do have the World's Championship Series. The World Series was right there. And the game that got more attention was the White Sox and Chicago, or White Sox Colts series. That was set up for the Chicago Championship. So I do think that there is a question here as to what we do with these games and these series, if we really treat them just as exhibitions or not. Because I'll tell you, this was a big deal back then. Look, Chicago's Colts met their local rivals, the White Stockings, yesterday for the first time in baseball history in the West Side grounds. Now, so you are aware, back in 1900, before the American League was a major league, the White Stockings, the White Sox, challenged the Chicago Orphans to a series similar to this one that was played, and it didn't come to pass at all. In fact, the owner, Hart of the National League club, thought that it was just a total joke, didn't want to have anything to do with it. And so it didn't come to pass, which is unfortunate because there is an argument to be made that the White Sox probably could have beat the Colts back then. Let's go ahead and just look through this series. It was probably a best-of-7 series, I'm guessing, but I don't know that for sure. So we'll look through and see what we can find. And, of course, it's always fun to go through these. You probably want to see the first page of some of these, huh? So you can see the thrilling drama in City Hall and all this other stuff. Maybe it's big enough for you, maybe not. Depends upon what kind of device you're watching this video on. We'll just sort of skip through here. Editorial section was up a little bit more, and the Colts captured the second game 5-1. Southpaws do pitching, and so on and so forth. 2 now for the West Side. The Cubs were already on the West Side back then. And, I'm sorry, they were on the West Side, then not the North Side. Interesting. We'll go to the next day because there was no need for a travel day. And let's see if we can jump straight to it. How you think it was on page 6? This is the Sunday version, so probably not. It's probably further down in. We can look through the nice sections here of the newspaper and see what we can find. Look at this. How Chicago's first public school record was kept. That's really interesting. Interesting stories told of olden days and so on and so forth. Newspapers of this era are fascinating to read. You have to be a little bit careful because you'll end up being lost within them. Look at this. The University of Chicago Maroons do not exist anymore, beat Indiana 34-0 in the opening contest of the Big Nine Conference, 1903. How about that? I wonder how many of you knew anything about that one. And this is, of course, our favorite part of this, which is the big diagram of how the game took place. Now, this isn't a football site. I do have a football site and a video series that we should go for, but we'll worry about that a little bit later. This shows you where the ball was pushed, how it was pushed forward and pushed backwards and so on and so forth. There's a touchdown for Chicago. No goal kicked. Note that a touchdown was 5 points. And there was a goal kick there, so 6 points the other way also for Chicago, and so on and so forth. It's probably a little bit difficult to fully follow this game. I'm not sure why they changed sides there, but whatever. If you know more about the early history of college football, let me know. I've always been fascinated with this because you don't see anything like that today. But, of course, our question is, where is the baseball at? And let's see if we can't find it here. So I'm not seeing much here. I may have missed it. So we'll go backwards a little bit. This is great. Interesting features of the American National League seasons. There was 145 pitchers used overall in 1903. Isn't that fascinating? And you get all of this information here in the paper. That's a little bit different than what you would see today. Of course, nobody reads newspapers today anyway, but a lot of really cool stuff going on. 3 in a row for the Colts. So the National League team won the 3rd straight game. Man, the White Sox had only scored 1 run against them. We'll go on to October 5th and see what happened on the 4th. Let's see what we can come up with. White Sox give Colts a beating. Finally, they win 10-2. They finally won a game. Now, I mean, is this major news or not? I don't know, but it was definitely bigger than word of the World Series at the time, which was down here. So they had traveled over to Pittsburgh, and the fans were very excited. And that was about the length and the breadth and the depth of that story. So we'll see what we can find here. It's going to be more political news, it looks like. This is on October 6th. And we may have to go back a little bit further. Let's see what we can find here. Right, and here we go. The White Sox won again. They win 4-3 in this one. And we will check forward in October 7th. You notice all of these games have box scores, which means that all of these games should be somewhere on Retrosheet. At least we have some information. We probably have information from other Chicago newspapers too. I'm only looking at the one. White Sox then lost game number 6, 5-2. So at least they did score a couple of runs. Now, my question is, did they play another one? Yep. 4 for the West Side, 2 for the South. Today's game is scheduled for the West Side grounds, and tomorrow's for the South Side, right? So they were going to play, it looks like it was a best-of-9 series, which was similar to the World Series back then. Let's see if this was the end of it or not. Yeah, we'll get past the racist news there. We don't want to see any of that. And it looks like the University of Chicago won again. How about that? Boston scores second victory. There you go. Here we go. It rained. So that was postponed because of rain. According to the text of agreement, a postponed game must be played off on the grounds for which it was scheduled prior to October 15th if necessary to decide the championship, right? Series was 4-2. So this was designed as a best of 9 series. So let's see what else we can come across, huh? And so we go ahead and skip on ahead and both slug but Sox hit harder. So the White Sox won that one 9-3. Making it a 4-3 series. Again, you do have the full box score here. Number of names that we recognize actually from 1908. Interesting stuff. Let's go over to the 10th and see what happened. See, this is what happens. And so when it comes to me, like writing these articles, you know, for my blog, you go through this like one thing at a time. And you're like, this is really interesting. And next thing you know, you spend like an hour and a half working on it. And you're like, I haven't written anything. All I've done is read. Right? How do we do this? How do we get this to be something useful and interesting? So that's the problem. And here we go. Owen donates games to Colts. Nationals win by 1-0 score through his fatal generosity. And the White Sox outbat and outfield the rivals, but they end up losing. And that is the end of the interleague series. And so the National League Chicago team ended up winning, and as you can see from this, there were more series than just this. There's a lot you can find in terms of the Interleague series of 1903. So there you have it. That's just a quick look at all this stuff. As I said, I'm probably going to spend a little bit of time, write a proper article about this and include some of these newspaper clippings. There's less news here than what we saw in 1912, but this is still pretty big stuff, right? Because this isn't even on the Retrosheet website, right? This is stuff that apparently nobody in the baseball world knows about, but there's a lot of stuff in the history of the sport that we're not talking about and we don't think about. Hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll have more for you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.